what to do. There's caffeine on the house, it's active, radioactive. Loving you felt like dying on the operating table, like climbing a ladder till I give up and fall. Like the anesthesia didn't work, and I feel the creation of every scar. Like a movie I'm chained to.
Wait, really quick, guys, I have to tell you about my GoFundMe for my music career. I have a GoFundMe for my music career starting from $0, raising money for ads to grow my audience and to reach record labels. If things grow, then I will eventually be using that money to turn my YouTube demos into full professional real recordings. And help me to go as far as possible. I bet if you guys will do your best to help me and to invest, you guys could probably turn me into the biggest pop star in the world. It's just going to really depend on how much you guys are willing and able to help me. So please do what you can to help, and I love you. Mwah. Bye.
I have 1 penny to buy this iced coffee, but this is everything you gave me. How did you know the gum on the ground was yours if you've never seen it before? There are no refunds for this part of me. Don't forget where you were when we met. I wanted to be liquidated, but they haven't found me yet. I'll spell it out for you when I'm free. There's disrespect in the water and the liquor can. Hi guys. Hi, I'm Celeste. Guess what? I decided that I wanted to do probably like one of the most awkward and narcissistic things you can do as an artist and interview yourself without an interviewer. And the reason why is just because I feel like I'm already introspective, but I feel like with questions, it really brings that out, and it's not just whatever prompted things I feel like saying. Like, whatever the moment prompts, I feel like I normally am. But that's not the only part of myself. I have the opportunity to exercise as a person that exists on the planet. So, and as an artist, I feel like it makes things interesting. Except I'm boring, but it makes things interesting to have an actual plan for the content in any way, shape, or form. So here's what that looks like. It's gonna be a very chopped up video in a way, because it's gonna be a very chopped up video. Because I'm gonna do each, I literally have like a screenshot of all the questions. I just asked like ChatGPT, because why not? Yeah. So that was my best vampire impression. Okay. So I did. Okay, the thing's coming out. Anyway, you get it. I decided time to like interview myself, because you could always ask ChatGPT for like questions to prompt like what the content format is, so that I actually have a format for the content, but it's gonna be chopped up because I'm gonna do each little individual clip and then each other one and just edit it together. Yeah. Okay, so there's like a list of questions. Okay. So, and I'm gonna write them on the whiteboard because that's the plan. That's just the plan I made up, dude. Okay. And it's gonna be weird because there's not somebody to interview me, so I can't pretend I didn't make up the questions like what everybody else does. And it's not like I have a publicist who's like, hey, don't say this part, or that part. Or a manager who's like, hey, if you shout this out, you'll probably get some kind of brand deal or something, right? I don't really have either of those. And nobody's heard of me because I don't have like a label or funding or anything, but you get the point. Okay. So first question. It's like, how would you describe yourself as an artist in a one sentence? I would say, let's see, what's one sentence? Grammar would be so helpful. Okay. No, one sentence. Anything that I experience is somewhere within the art, and everything that I feel like I have experienced is also somewhere in the art that I've created. Nothing that emotionally impacts me. That's more than one sentence, but yeah, you get it. The first part of that was the sentence. Just anything that emotionally impacts me ever is somewhere in the art, in a literal or non-literal form. So everything that impacts me is in the art, I think, is one sentence. Okay. Next question. Wait. 1 second. Okay. Next question. When did you start making music and why? Okay, so I uploaded I just checked, but I kind of already forgot. Anyway, so I think it was April 9th, 2025. April 9th. I can't pronounce it. 9th. Okay, April 9th, 2025. The number 9, but yeah. I realized my pronunciation can be a bit odd at times. But yeah, April 9th was when at 2025 was when I posted my first song video. But a year before that was when I created it and had it in my camera roll for a year. So it would have been like April 2024 when I recorded the first song and just had it sitting in my camera roll, like unedited, but it was just there. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to answer the part that was like, and why? When did you do it and why? Why? Well, I spontaneously had the idea for the first song, and when I spontaneously had the idea, I went to record it immediately because I kind of always knew that I wanted to put out songs at some point in time, and I didn't really know what it was going to be, if I was just going to delete the video or not. And then I had it in my camera roll for like a year trying to figure out what to do, and then just one day I just did it, like I just posted it. So it wasn't really thought out at the start. I wasn't like, oh, day one of, maybe I posted something like day one of making a song, but like I didn't like, or like putting out a song, like I didn't really like think about it in that way, I guess. Like I just had it in my camera roll at that point in time because I just had the idea out of nowhere. So the next question is kind of fun. Okay. What made you decide to post everything you create? What made me decide to post everything I create? I think as opposed to only posting occasionally, ? Like I don't really, like what made me decide to post everything that I create? I think I decided because I never had a like viral moment. I feel like for some people like that sets the tone for when they're interesting and when they're not interesting to an audience that they're not like sitting in front of. So it's a little more like I decided I'm not gonna know which parts of myself somebody likes and doesn't like, and I'm definitely not gonna know for an imaginary number of people. So while it's 0 right now, I feel like I have that comfortability of just posting as many as I create, and it almost like doesn't matter in a way. Like it's like it's not like I got more than 0 views on that one anyway, so the next one doesn't really have to feel very harshly judged, even though in the future I wouldn't mind that because then there will be like the distance of time between having multiple songs out. And again, I'm not gonna know. Sometimes when people have feedback with their art, they know what people like, and at the end of the day, like, the more you create, the more you don't know which parts of yourself would have been like good or bad or like not good enough, or you don't know. Like, I think sometimes when an artist has feedback, they get told, we really like this side of you, or we really like this one talent you have, or we really hate this one sound that you made in this song. Instead, for me, it's like, well, I'm probably going to do the thing that you hate in every song, and I'm probably going to do the thing that I didn't know that you loved only once or twice. So they all might as well be out there, because there's an absence of criticism. So there's the freedom in having an absence of criticism, because it almost doesn't matter if the future people dislike something that I do or something that I've done, because it'll be years in retrospect by the time they decide that they don't like something I've done. So it doesn't fully matter in the same context of if it were yesterday to either me or the other person. The next question has loaded from the imaginary places. Okay. Do you see your music as one big project or many separate ones? I think the funny part about the word many is that nothing ever feels like many of anything, right? Like, I mean, maybe, but like, well, Does it feel like one big project or many separate projects? I think it started as a thing where each song, because I wasn't doing albums yet when I first put out songs, so each song was its own project separately. So it started as feeling like, this is one separate song that's its own project, this is another separate song that's its own project, I don't know how many of these I'm gonna do, and then, okay, this is another song that's a separate project, funny, we're still going, okay, next song, this is another separate project, okay. And then once I started getting to a point where I had so many albums that I started putting out but didn't finish putting out, that I lost track of the number of albums that I started putting out but didn't finish putting out, and then realized, well, if I ever experience like a spike of talent or a loss of talent, right, then they're all going to consistently be at the same level, which makes them feel like one cohesive giant project. So now it feels like a giant project, but it did not start that way. The next question, okay, wait. The next question is, how do you even keep track of over 40 albums? Okay, how do you even keep track of over 40 albums? So the albums that I have to, well, I really only have to keep track of the albums that I started putting songs out, which by now is over 40 albums that I started putting songs out of. And how to keep track of it? Well, I use just the cover art and title of the album just jogs my memory. It's kind of, how would you explain it? It's not like, do you remember how many people were working at your first job and do you remember all their names? It's not like that. It's like, do you remember right now what you personally have an association with red hair, right? Like, you would know, oh, I know how I feel about that. Like, that's sort of like the way that I mentally have my album worlds categorized. It's more like, well, do you remember? It's not like, oh, you have to have like some crazy memory, but like, right now, what is your association with the planet Mars, right? It's like the stories are still there because they're alive, because they're a part of you. So what is your like real association with the food ice cream? You never forget those parts of you, because those parts of you are so active in the moment and real. And so I keep my album worlds in the part of me that is real, not in the part of me that doesn't matter so much that it could easily be forgotten about. So I don't see the albums as so many people and walking around creatures that I have to like remember. In a way, I just see them as like, they're not tabs open in my phone that I have to remember how many I have and what I Googled last. Like, it's not, it's like, well, I remember what eating like a chicken tender feels like and what that experience is. So this album to me is like, or, you know, any album. I look at the album, the cover art, everything that is the story of the album is the part of it that is so alive that there's no being misguided away from it, because as much as you want to eat a chicken tender and imagine that it's a piece of the moon, you kind of, there's still a part of you that knows that it's not and has the experience of it so much that you can't lose the physical experience of it. Okay, the next question. What counts as an album to you? So I think first of all I have the separate categories of what counts, in my opinion, as an album if another person did it, and what counts if I do it and it's an album, right? Like, what would I consider counts as that? So if another person creates a collection of like 9 or more songs and they call it an album, then congratulations, that's an album. I mean, I think if it's anything less than like 11 or 12, I would struggle to accept it into the ethers of that person said it's an album, so it's an album, but that doesn't take away the fact that they have the right to say that's an album. And it's not necessarily about the number, but like, if it's too few, I would be like, it wouldn't have been hard for you to like throw a couple more on there, right? But like, that's, I think, how I would feel. But for mine, I'm more cautious with just not being invalidating to myself when it comes to what would I consider an album. So I would say like singing, not talking. And I decide before I release a project if it's an album, if it's a part of an album, what is this? And so when I decide that it is an album, then I simply make the cover art for it, announce it as an album, and then post the songs that are going to be the album. It's more deliberate than creating something and being like, well, does this count? I more so say like, well, it's time to make an album right now, so what's the album going to be about? And an album is definitely going to consist of at least this many songs, which I already have surpassed that, so I would say I don't have a maximum. But I do have a minimum that I think is like respectable, because I just think that some form of morals in society have to exist. But that's just me. You wouldn't show up with a gun to a vending machine and expect you to give it a bag of chips, is how I feel about why an album has more than like 3 songs on it. But that's you though. Like, if that's the way you want to like change the world, then at the same time, like, I'm not going to be what stands in your way. It's just not the way I would have lived. So the next question. Do you have a favorite album? Or does that not really make sense anymore? Okay, let's be real. I can tell the conversation at this point would be about like my album, not like other people's albums, because do I have a favorite of other people's albums? I think that's the part that wouldn't make sense. But it doesn't mean I can't recognize, oh, that's a good album or that's a good part of somebody's album or whatever. Like, I can definitely recognize that. But as far as my own favorite, I think I have least favorites that I can keep to myself, because it is simply, oh, I won't repeat that one thing that I chose, but I was just trying it out, but also there's no reason to think that somebody else wouldn't like that if they just discovered it, so maybe it was experimental. I think favorite album, I think because they're not studio produced, it's hard to separate which one would be my favorite album, because I think that would be maybe a step that would glamorize the good parts and sort of hide the bad parts, is how I feel. So I'm almost not at a level where it matters if I have a favorite, but I think I do approach each album. I think I approach each album that I'm working on like trying to keep the current one my favorite in the moment, and to make choices that reflect taking it from its current form and turning it into my favorite. Like, I think when I add songs to it, I want to be so deliberate. I'm still in the process of like figuring out how to do that, but like, because people can get lost in things, but I think I try to like take the current moment and turn it into my favorite, no matter what it is. So yeah. Okay, next question. How do you decide when an album is done? So, how do you decide when an album is done? I feel like, if anything, that's something that I try not to have, like, again, they're not studio produced, so it could really go any direction, but I feel like I try not to have, like, regrets about putting too many songs in an album, because I'm still at a phase with no feedback where, like, from like a public audience, right? So if anything, I don't know which songs would be amazing and which songs would not be, so I didn't want to have any of them left behind. I think I know when an album is finished because it has 60 or more songs on it, and I think that's how I know when it's done. Especially if it's in English and it has 60 or more songs. I think I know when it's done when there's other albums waiting for songs that are not on those yet, and sometimes they almost end up a little bit blended together when it's time to move on to the next one. So yeah, I'm still, also I just try to not be like judgmental or invalidating to myself if I just have that intuition about it, like it's time to at least put this on pause and work on something else. I'm more so using like a pause button with my albums, and not like, oh, it's permanently done, because none of them are studio produced, so anything could be added or taken away. I just more so want to add than take away, unless it has to happen when it gets down to that point, but I don't know yet. Okay, the next question. We're kind of falling into hot lava, I don't know. Okay. Do your albums have themes, or are they more like snapshots of your life? So, do they have themes, or are they more like snapshots of my life? Well, I think I gravitate towards the part of myself that I haven't discovered more so, or whatever is going to be a challenge. And sometimes I think keeping a cohesive theme would not feel as much like a challenge than being able to imagine something conceptually that has overlapping parts with everything else, and then still being able to picture it as separate from the others, and having this like an independent self. Like I think wanting to be able to have a sense of self that is separate within this one body of work is interesting and important, and what I feel drawn to the most. Okay, I was confused. Okay. Yeah, like I feel like I become like more drawn towards having like I want to exercise the most, or I feel drawn to exercising the most, the part of me that wants to be able to see I'm trying to think of how to even say it. Like I go where I feel drawn in the art, and what I feel drawn to is always changing, but right now I'm not in a phase of forcing restrictions on my projects, so it's kind of a mixture. It's like, oh, I feel very drawn to creating this exact song today, and I also already know which album this belongs on. That doesn't mean that there's an album that's like songs about rain clouds, you know, or songs about weather magic, or songs that are kind of sexual or something, right? Like, I don't sit here like, oh, this album is only allowed to be songs that other people would interpret this exact way, and that I'm so sure that they would interpret it this exact way. Because for all I know, what if you don't interpret it that way, and then all of the fun of creating it instead turned to me forcing myself to create it a certain type of way when I'm not sure yet if you would interpret it that way, because maybe I didn't have feedback with that yet, or maybe it just wasn't what I was drawn to. So, but snapshots of my life doesn't feel necessarily true, because it's not like, today I had this exact experience and I'm going to tell you the exact literal version of what happened. Like, I feel like I was always very like hyperbolic with like wanting to like use certain types of imagery and language, and I felt like metaphorical writing mattered, and figurative, different ways of writing, and whatever figurative ways, right? I definitely am I well versed on the versions of that? Not really, but like, you know, I was like, I think letting it happen is the phase that I'm in. And then later on, I'll interpret, oh, it's so interesting I went this way or that way, or I wish I did this and that. Like, I'm not in a phase of having regrets about it, because I want to finish all the projects I'm currently working on. And then after that, I think I'll have a moment where I have more positive and negative feedback for myself about what I want to do in the future or not. But finishing where I'm at before having too much judgment or too much criticism is where I'm starting, because I feel like I'm still starting even though I have so many projects. It's kind of chaos of both. Right. I don't know if I'll have the most satisfying answer to the next question, but we'll see. Is there an album you think people should start with? In my catalog of songs, is there an album I think you should start with? They're all good and bad for different reasons, because I have things that I love about each one and things that I maybe wish I could have done differently in each one, right? Or that I do wish I could do differently in each one, you know what I mean? So I think the first thing that I dissolved was my desire to be your tour guide and force you to listen to any specific song or any specific album. I think I very quickly started to learn that if you jump in and just do it, that you might be able to navigate the situation yourself, and I believe in you. Maybe I would recommend none of them because they're not studio produced yet, but I really want them to be in the future. But they still exist, and I'm still putting them out, and I still have passion and love for what I'm creating, but I feel so distant from even knowing which ones are good or not good at this phase, without feedback, without money to put towards it, without more than like 2 views on a video. Like, most people are choosing to just not listen to any of them, and so if you did that, I can't really judge you for it, but if you wanted to, like, that would be cool. You know, that's kind of how I feel, which sounds like I'm choosing to feel weird about it, or like it is awkward to be an artist and to have people not find out about that yet, or to be in that in-between phase, because people don't want to hang out with you because what if they haven't heard any of your songs or something, which is weird because you didn't say they should. It's weird because people have that weird like guilt with it. They're like, oh, I know you put out songs, but I haven't listened to them. Like, they don't say it to you, but they just avoid you because they're like, well, I don't want to be forced to listen to you all the time. You can tell they're thinking, but like, I didn't say you should be. So it's both. I trust that if you're ready to like dive in, you'll just do it. But they're also not studio produced yet, so if that's like a someday better version of them, then maybe that would be more ideal. But you also like have a right to listen to them. I can't stop you anyway, even if it's like a really bad one or like one that doesn't sound good, you know, like I also can't stop you. So like, all right, next question. How fast do you typically make a song? On average, I take one of two amounts of time to make a song. The amount of time it takes to physically get a piece of paper and write the words. Usually, there's never like a rough draft, there's never like a, oh, I'm gonna cross out that word. Maybe if it's a pencil, I use like the eraser for like one single word. Or if I spell something wrong. The amount of time, like, I have different versions of writing. I think, I think somebody would like to chop me up if I told you my whole life story, to be honest. So, obviously, the short, small version makes the most sense. I'm already interviewing myself. We can't really we cannot punch all the birds in the face in one day, okay? We cannot do that. I just think it probably takes me like the amount of times it takes to physically sing the words, the amount of times to write 30 words on a sheet of paper and start singing it. I just open Snapchat and sing it, like that's it. Amount of time, if I'm spending more than like 7 or 8 minutes on the song and it's not a 7 or 8 minute long song, I'm gonna be kind of bothered. Or if it's not like a 5-minute song, you know, editing maybe takes like a little bit of time. It's just iMovie though, so kind of fast, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So next question has loaded. Do you overthink songs or just release them and move on? Well, I think sometimes how you know a song is really terrible is if you get a lot of feedback and people tell you that one's really bad, but I haven't had that. And I think sometimes how you know a song's really good is a lot of people told you, hey, that one's really good. Other than like slight intuition, like I think if you absolutely are so bothered by something that you're actively creating, you kind of hit backspace on the keyboard, or you kind of just delete that take and you retake the clip of you singing it, or you just erase those words really quick, throw away that piece of paper. But again, because I spend a couple of minutes, or like the amount of time it takes to record each song, to plus editing time, plus like physically writing the words down, so a lot of them are probably like 10 minutes if it's like a 5-minute song, like total. So I would not call that overthinking compared to some artists who might go back and forth about which song to add or not add for like months at a time just to make some random decision, a coin flip after months and months of deliberating whether or not this song could possibly be worth it. I feel like I'm more of a like just do it type person, and someday I might be lucky enough to have even one person be like, this one is amazing compared to that one that's awful. Like, I feel like that would be maybe like best case scenario, that in 20 years I'll have that happen at some point. So I'm more likely to just put it out there. All right, next question. What comes first for you, lyrics, sound, or emotion? That depends on what kind of day it is. If I just have a free time, like if I have it depends, right? All three there's different scenarios. There's just different scenarios, okay? There's different scenarios. Imagine I have like a lot of free time and I'm looking at my song catalog and I'm like, I need to like be working on these. I need to not let so much time pass that I feel like I haven't been working on this, because then I feel like I'm practicing. I feel like I'm like doing something amazing and like useful with my time, and I like to be productive, and I think that was a way to know that I'm being productive. And so I will start to work on concepts if I just have a lot of free time. And when I have concepts, I would like to sometimes create like a prompt for like what each song was about, and then I would be like, based on the prompt, in like notes or the journal app, I'll write chorus, verse 1, like it'll say like just the word chorus and like, what is it called, like ellipses, I don't know, or whatever it's called, like the little like dots. And then under that I write verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, bridge, and then I have the prompt like, this whole song has to be exactly how I felt when this happened, and then this happened, and then that 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 happened. Oh, and mixed with this exact, the way that this exact zodiac sign feels, combined with this animal, combined with this food, combined with this planet, combined with like this strange occurrence on the planet that didn't make any sense, combined with this color, combined, and I kind of like use like what the emotion was, and like weird ways to say the emotion that also don't seem morally wrong, because who knows what emotions you're feeling about what or why, okay? Combined with, and like the best way to like say it, but sometimes you want it to sound pretty, and like what are like nice ways to say it. You kind of sugarcoat it sometimes, and you're kind of like, well, also what kind of personality do I want to seem like I have? So okay, once you combine that, well, the chorus has to be this kind of song, the verses have to be this kind of song, and the bridge has to be this kind of song. Like, as far as when you put it all together, then it sounds like this combination, right? That's how I see it. There are times when I would use ChatGPT to come up with lyrics, so I would create a good prompt for that and start to be like, I would just essentially take sort of like the prompt, but I would be like, give me the lines that are with this exact theme, combined with this exact theme, combined with this, combined with that, like all of these ideas, right? And just send me like a bullet point list of like a lot of lines. And then I would, when I first started doing that, I would literally go ahead and like tweak every single word when I did choose a line, and I would skip most of them. Now I'm a little bit more like open to just embracing like whatever seems meant to be when I use that. So sometimes I'll just like be like, just send me like a list of lines, and I'll use like 90% of them unless they're like really awful. But then the song ends up being like 20 minutes, 29 minutes, 15 minutes, which is kind of extreme for a song. But there are times when I would experiment with that, and like if you want something done super fast but you already know like the script for ChatGPT, then you can do it that way. Or that's like what I had done, which those are kind of less emotional and less like stylistic with like sound, but you can kind of, well, I think integrating more versions, you never know where the next upgrade comes from as an artist. You never know where you learn something.
There's literally a bug on my glasses. Do you see it? You kind of don't always know in the lifetime as a person where you learn something that you didn't already know. So, I don't know. I'm willing to try my options. And so I've done all of that. As far as emotion coming first, that does happen. Anytime I'm even like 1% unhappy, I basically can't even think of anything except for creating the art, which sounds more like the sad ones. There's like a bug, like I don't want it in my mouth, oh my gosh. But like, I think when I'm like sad, the emotion, I'm not really like, some people will like cry. Oh my god, there's like, I just killed it. Did not mean to. Goodbye, nasty little bitch. Pretty much, I'm not gonna sit there and like cry over you. I'm not gonna sit there and cry over you. Okay, I will shed one single tear after writing the song. Before I post it, before I edit it, but all of that footage is like in my camera roll if I shed one single tear over you, okay? Like, I think I'm not a person who's fine with just sitting in an emotion that I am not obsessed with. I'm not gonna sit in an emotion that I'm not obsessed with. Like, if I'm gonna shed one single tear over you, you were in 1,000 songs or 50 songs. If I've ever shed a tear over you, you were in at least a few songs. We're not gonna talk about which one, but you were in something at some point. And that's because I think it's great to deeply care about somebody. It's just, what am I gonna do? Stay in like a disempowered state where I'm like, oh, you felt like breaking my heart or making me sad or something, right? I don't want to sit in that if I have a choice. I'm a very like get after it type person. When I feel like, oh, I need to upgrade in my life in some way, I'm like, well, how can I do it this exact second? I can't put it off till tomorrow, because what if I'm missing something here? What if I didn't do something I was supposed to have already done? Like I have the hyper fixation of the mind that's only geared toward upgrading my reality. I'm over talking, but I've done both. But if there's ever a negative emotion, it was in all the songs. Next question. Do you ever revisit old songs or just keep going forward? So occasionally I'll listen to like my first song ever, or yeah, once in a while I'll listen to that one. I have so many songs, I have so many things that I need to finish and projects I need to finish. I think if I completely forgot maybe what was happening in a project, I will listen to it and make sure I know what I need. They're not studio produced though, so they're harder to listen to for me, because I'm then gonna be critical of like things that I had no control over. I think there were a lot of times I listened to Lab Grown Diamonds, but I think after that I maybe took less time revisiting, because I have so many that I want to finish, so many projects I want to finish, so many albums I want to finish, and I know what I put on all of them, so I'm not like, by title I kind of remember, oh, that's about this and this is that and that's that. So because when I'm visually looking at it, I have that kind of memory. Right here I can't really tell you exactly like name a song on this album. I can't really do that right now, but I can look at the list and be like, okay, yeah, I remember what they're about. So it's more like
in this phase, I don't want to be in an energy where I could pick apart songs that I haven't had like positive or negative validation for. Like, I feel like I'm healing my mind every time I really put out songs, but it's hard for me to be able to give myself like positive validation for anything. Part of why this video might seem kind of dry to listen to, I don't know, maybe not, but like, I feel like the way I feel about myself is like, what am I gonna give myself positive validation for? Like, nothing, or almost nothing. Like, I wouldn't even really like have the energy for that. Doesn't mean I wouldn't want to. So I feel like I'm saying yes to myself when I put out songs and when I finish projects that I said I was gonna finish, and I don't feel like I'm saying yes to myself when I listen to it because they're not studio produced and I don't want to ever put myself in an energy where I am judging whether or not it should even be there, because I feel like that's where my mind would go right now. But I'd rather just create more and see where the inspiration would go in an open, nothing's ever happened yet mental state. The amount of these songs I created because they were my first song, even though I had hundreds of songs already out, is kind of how I look at it. Okay. So, like an owl, I don't know. Okay. So, next question. How do you avoid burnout with that level of output? Okay. So, how I feel about burnout is that burnout is a combination of different things, but we kind of label them all as one, and then the society forgets that there's multiple versions of what burnout is and can feel like, right? Or that's how I see it. Okay. So we don't have multiple words for what burnout is, you know? I think burnout happens when we don't know where we recharge, and burnout might happen. Sorry, notification again. I think I try to study like what burnout is and where it comes from. So like with the plan of avoiding future burnout. So I try to have multiple projects, or I was willing to have multiple projects at the same time, so that I could work on a different one if I felt like burned out. That was what I tried to do. And I wanted to see it like, what if creating a project could be the way that I felt like I could recharge as an artist and as a person, so that I could not get burned out in other areas of my life. I think burnout happens when, I'm trying to think of how to explain it. I think burnout happens when the excitement or level of energy you were used to for the majority of your life is no longer there. When you're experiencing a dip in what your energy usually is. But everybody has a different baseline for the amount of energy they're used to having and experiencing. So mine, I don't feel like I had a high enough baseline of like energy that I automatically had to where burnout would get in the way. If I'm physically able to do it, then there's not burnout for me. which is kind of why I seem hyper to people, or like I have so much energy to talk, and when it's singing, it's really just talking. But yeah, I feel like my baseline was naturally not that I had so much expendable energy. I feel like, you know, when you feel, I think when people feel like half asleep, they feel like they can just talk forever, because you're not like, I have a preference about how this goes. But when you're using all your mental energy to be like, I have a preference about how this goes, and if I say this, then you're not gonna like me anymore, and if I say that, then this is gonna be really bad. Like, I feel like I'm more so in the state of like, if there were ever an outcome, then all of the trying to get an outcome would just be worth it. Is how I feel like 99, if not 100% of the time. So I'm not spending my energy creating your interpretation in my head too much to where there would be burnout. I'm just talking, and singing is just talking. Basically, oops, pretty much that. Okay. The phone's charging, so it has to be at a weird angle and stuff, and that's what that was. Okay, the next question. Why is it important to you to post every song instead of filtering? Backhanded ChatGPT questions. To some degree, because robots don't really have context. Let's see. Why? I mean, that almost feels like the same as the burnout question, to be honest with you. I think, okay, people live their lives with the context of their own lives, and they create with the context of their own lives. And so, yeah, I don't know why. Because, you know how people are like, oh, it takes like, I don't know, 10,000 hours to be good at something. Okay? And I believe that I could still be successful someday. And I believe that someday I would be maybe I poured a lot of water on the ground by accident. Okay, that's not the point. So, I kind of decided at some point in time that maybe me and other people would find it interesting to see how many songs maybe it took to gain traction, or this is the degree of how much you can see that it's never going to happen and it can still happen, was something that I almost didn't mind being an example of. Is you can post your 500th song and still get 0 views, and that doesn't mean that it's never going to happen, and this is proof that it's at least possible for somebody to do that and still have success, because I almost had the mindset of like, well, if it's definitely going to happen, then, which there's no reason to think it's definitely going to happen, but like I said, why not just live my life with the context of that and then decide how I'm going to create it? And in order to live my life with the context of it definitely happening at some point in time, a step of that was, well, why not show off how many things can go wrong? Well, it's like if you were, say Netflix were just a startup right now, and they have no reason to think that Squid Game is gonna go well, and they don't really have money to put into it, but they can still do something that looks like Squid Game, just without some of the special effects. They still know Squid Game is this powerful idea, and I know it's gonna have an impact someday, but every time I post an episode, I get no feedback, but I still believe in Squid Game, and I still have this burning passion inside me that says no matter what, someday Squid Game is gonna work out. Someday there will be a professionally done version of Squid Game. I believe in it, right? They don't stop writing the script just because they don't see money yet. But instead, what I took on was like, if that impoverished version of Netflix decided it's time to instead put out like an episode a day until it happens. And I don't care how many episodes it's gonna be, but it's gonna happen. And someday all of those episodes are gonna be proof that even if it didn't immediately happen, there's no reason to think that it couldn't still happen. Which, the ironic part is, then how did I do all of this without getting burned out? Well, it's the combination of having the baseline of not having energy, and then I was used to that, so it wasn't like I lost something when it didn't immediately work out, because it's almost like I expected, like, my expectation that it's infinitely possible that it someday could happen is no different, because it didn't have to be within a day. It didn't have to be within a year. You know, it doesn't have to, sometimes you can almost have a mindset where it's like, even if it were not in this lifetime, that doesn't mean that I'm permanently damaged in the way that I can never be successful in another lifetime. So if I'm just building up skills with no proof that it's ever going to work out, I might as well walk into my next lifetime with an infinite amount of skills to the point where it does happen. Not having the result of getting views or feedback was the push that I needed to not ever stop posting, because I don't have to worry that the 50 views that I'm getting are going to go away when I never had 50 views, but they were 3 views. I never had 50,000 views that I might be boring to, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna bore you, and then I'm gonna get 1,000 instead of 50,000. There wasn't the risk of already having success that could be lost. There was the, maybe if I keep going, something's gonna work someday. And how bad do I want it to work someday? And also, how much would I not mind being proof that it can be hard and it can still happen? When you're getting 0 views, it doesn't matter how many videos are on the channel, it's still gonna be 0 views, so, but if you want it to be more videos, it'll be more videos. And it doesn't start being less videos just because, if you're not ashamed of that, nobody saw me fail because I wasn't famous. There wasn't like a news article saying like, it didn't work out, you know? So I didn't have the negative side publicly of like something bad happened, but I had the positive side of there's no reason to think it couldn't possibly happen. So find out how it happens and how hard you can make it look before it does happen. Next question. Do you ever regret releasing something? Do you ever regret releasing something? So, of course, but I don't delete what I regret, okay? And I don't look at regrets the same way. I remember what I'm overcoming in my life when I face regrets. And yeah, sometimes I'm just lying awake in my bed and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really put that line in the song. Like I really, like 8 months ago, I really put that line in the song. Like the downside of having a good memory is sometimes it just pops into my head. I'm like, wow, I really put that line into the song. Like, huh? Like that was really like what it had to be. Like why? Like it was like I thought in the moment I'm being so spontaneous, like I'm being so weird in this intentional way, and like maybe it's cool and edgy, but like the audience isn't gonna know that like I'm just being weird intentionally. And what if I'm adding like weird representation out there somehow, and like what if this is like empowering to some random group of people, right? What if there's a purpose to what I'm doing? Okay, and then I'm lying in my bed, like eyes open, like cannot close my eyes. I'm like, oh my god, I put that line in the song. I put that line in the song 8 months ago, 10 months ago. I put that line in the song. I can't believe I did that. Can't believe I did that. Mind you, it'll be like so many songs that I haven't listened to since then, but I remember doing it. And I'm like, oh, what do I do? I'm not gonna delete it. The song's great, but like, oh, weird choice, you know? Like, oh, it had to be that album, not the other one. Like, couldn't you have like just
done something slightly different? Why did it have to be song number 3 or 4 or whatever? Like, why could you have not, like, made it, like, later on in the album? Like, I do that. Of course. Can't remember the title of it, so I can't really go back and check, but, like, can't really go back and make sure my voice at least sounded good, you know, because I don't remember the title, but, like, I remember the whole song I did. I do that. But, like, I also try to remember the context of, like, well, if I felt like it was weird representation that maybe should be out there anyways, maybe there's a positive side to it. Maybe it's not weird to have a weird line in a song or two. Maybe that's not that weird. Maybe it's funny in some context. Even if people are laughing at me, maybe it's still funny, right? And I just, not to, like, throw my mom under the bus, but I was raised with almost every day as like a 8-year-old being told, like, you don't regret enough in your life, like, you should regret everything you ever done, like, every single day that passes you become a worse person, like, which of course all the time I fully believed because I was just a child, like, absorbing it like a sponge, right? But like that was what I was feeding off of, was what I was being told. But, like, you know, it should be like, you know, every day it would be like I talked to so many people about you and they all agreed with me that every single day you become a worse person and, like, you're not the person you were raised to be. I'm like, I'm an 8-year-old, but, like, but I fully believed it. I was like, Mom, you're so right. I don't know what I did, but, like, you're so right. Like, she felt like she didn't see the side of me where I, like, worshipped her saying that enough. Even when I was like, maybe you're right, Mom. Like, she didn't feel like I, like, bowed down to her enough when she said that. I don't know what she thought was gonna happen, but, like, she thought it was gonna be, like, impactful, like, we both start crying because she's right, like, and this is, like, blessed by Jesus moment, like, but it wasn't religious. It was in a very, like, atheist context, right? It wasn't, like, spiritually, you're going the wrong way. It was, like, because it wasn't something I was even doing, but it was, like, you know, it wasn't even until I was probably, like, 15 or 16 where I sort of almost did, like, a reverse psychology thing where I was like, you're gonna have to show me, like, an example of that, because like, I still get stressed thinking about it, but I was like, if you tell me an example of it, I can make sure I never repeat that action. And that actually worked for a very long time. I probably had, like, a couple of years where that almost, like, reverse psychology worked, because at least she would kind of sit there and try to come up with an example of what I had done, but there were usually no examples. And then eventually she started being like, that's a terrible thing for you to say or ask from me. But yeah, it wasn't until I was, like, 15 or 16 that I had a few years of, like, reverse psychology with that that I was very, very weirdly successful at. But no, it was like I don't even know how many years that is. A decade, more than a decade or whatever, of, like, just every day, like, I talked to so many people and we all decided you're actually the worst person ever, and, like, every single day you become a worse person, and, like, meanwhile I'm, like, taking notes. I'm like, okay, I'm the worst person in the world, I'm worse every single day. Me trying to figure out, like, where this is coming from, like, okay, oh yes, so yesterday I ate applesauce, that's probably why I'm the worst person ever. Like, it should have been something else. I ate 2 burritos instead of 1. It's probably why. Like, I forgot how to tie my shoes, that's probably why. Like, this is not the person I'm raised to be, like. Oh. I forgot to read that chapter of the book for school, that's probably why I'm the worst person ever. Like, actually putting in all of the energy I possibly could into finding out what I was doing every single day to become the worst person ever, and, like, to not be the person I was raised to be, and to be told, like, I'm, like, you know, like, I'm, which I fully believed. It took me till my 20s to be able to, like, hear anything anybody said and not believe it, or believe you're right in some way that I don't even know about. And just automatically, like, everything anybody said I just believed. So you got to me. If you said anything ever
No, like, literally anybody, like, even a stranger, like, I believed you if you said anything, because I don't know, I spent all the time being the worst person ever, so I had to, like, try to find out how to make up for it, so I just believed everything everybody ever said. So which turned out great. I mean, I'm pretty awesome now, but, like, doesn't mean I know how to give myself, like, validation for anything, or, you know, anyway. So that's why it doesn't mean something for me to, it doesn't, like, mean something substantial for me to regret something, because that would be my baseline if I let it get to me. So I just don't. I'm just like, oh yeah, I regret that one line in the song, but whatever. Like, it'll help somebody out. It'll give somebody a weird idea that I didn't think of, you know? It's okay. It's okay. Okay, yeah. Wait. Okay, we're going with this camera angle because it works. Okay, let's see. Do you believe in unfinished music, or is everything finished once posted? Do I believe in unfinished music, or is everything finished once posted? Well, I don't see there as being a version of me that really would want to delete any music I've ever put out or videos I put out or anything. I don't see myself as wanting to, like, delete those off the internet. So that video, I guess, is finished in its own context, but it's just that none of them are studio produced, so that would be, like, the most amazing thing that could ever happen. If that happened, it would be cool, it would be nice. It would just be nice. That's all. Oh, next question. That wasn't the answer. Okay. How do you feel about perfection versus volume? Perfection versus volume. I don't know, dude. Doesn't, like, size matter? I believe in that. I believe in that. I believe in that. And I don't see any of us as being as perfect as we might have wanted to be anyways. I think had I had maybe every possible version of a hand in choosing everything about every experience that I had ever, I would have maybe leaned towards perfection more than volume in the amount of songs that I created, because maybe that's how I would have started. But I think how my catalog ended up is to be, like, the longest song catalog ever, with nothing being perfect or finished. And I think it's almost like, I think what you learn to accept about yourself and about your journey has a lot of virtue that maybe you needed. And so I didn't necessarily have it perfectly maintained and preserved to have the option to choose perfection over volume, but I will accept the virtue wherever I am lucky enough to hopefully experience it. And so I had to learn the version of reality that I didn't already know about, and the version that I didn't already expect. And the least expected thing that ended up happening was that I decided to create over 1,000 songs, over like 1,300 songs in just 1 year. And so when that happens, I didn't get to choose if there was a motorcycle sound going by in the background of the recording, or if my voice didn't sound perfect that day because I didn't have the technology or know how to use the technology, even if I had expensive, like, equipment or something, which I don't, but, like, I wouldn't know how to, like, use it because you kind of have to be trained in that. The way that you have to be trained in any job, you really have to be trained, and then even after you're trained, it takes years and years to actually get good at it and all of that. And so those are, you know, just things that it wasn't like I could like really choose. And so I'm grateful that I created the volume of the catalog, because in a way it maybe makes up for imperfection. That's how I feel. That's just how life is. That's how life is going. But, you know, it's simply different to have more songs, because I know what it means to create more of them, but it's also more practice to create as many things that I feel happy about as possible, but also accept myself as many times as possible and say yes to myself as many times as possible, which is the paradox of it. When you're less perfect, in a way, it's harder to accept yourself and say yes to yourself, but you're also just already in the pattern of doing that regardless. It's both. The next question: do you make music for yourself or for an audience? Do I make music for myself or for an audience? Well, first of all, my audience is that I have 1,000 subscribers, but I get like 0 views to 3 views a video. Song or not song, it's like 0 to 3. So I might have 3 real friends out there or 3 strangers who care. Either way, that's pretty good. For some reason, it's pretty good because I was willing to say yes to myself that many times without feedback. And that's what's pretty cool about me, is that I can pretty much do that anyways, a lot of the time, most of the time, enough of the time, that I can still find virtue in that, or excitement in that, in other words. Or I can force myself to do it that many times because maybe there's going to be an imaginary reward someday. Either way, I'm a pretty cool person for that, okay? It's pretty decent to be able to do that. Okay. But do I make music, I'll say, with the mindset of this is only for me or for an audience? Well, the word for, you know, it's like, who is this created for, like, to someday enjoy it? And so every single thing I've made is created for an audience to someday enjoy it, because I already have the life experience of creating it, and that's my enjoyment and my essentially practice, because I believe you can infinitely practice and just become only better at something. Even if you don't know what it does yet, there's got to be something it does, right? And then someday you just wake up good at it. Weird mindset. Okay, I kind of believe that. But I'll say, like, do I create music with the context of I create this part of it because you're going to enjoy it someday, versus in that way? Or do I create it like little bit by bit with the context of I enjoy what I just created or what I'm actively creating? I would say that just depends on what I'm trying to overcome in the moment, because if I'm feeling like I'm in like a really like flashy and like successful era and mindset, and I have it's a greater level of expendable energy to be creating with the context of I made this part of it only because the audience is going to love it, especially when you don't have an audience perceiving everything that you're doing immediately. Otherwise, that would be the easiest to fall into, because, oh, the audience is going to perceive it. Well, I can't do the parts that I would have wanted to do because, well, they're going to be there and whatever, right? They're going to love it if I do what they're going to love. And I actually love when I am in a mental space where I can create just because you're going to love it someday. Most of it, I think I create because, oh, this is how I feel this day, this is what I need right now, but I know that someday somebody's going to hopefully enjoy this, and like that's why I'm putting it out. But what I'm creating is what I need in the moment, I think, is what I lean into. Because of there not being an audience, it's more so like there's like the more raw side of it in a way, where I'm like just like, this is what I feel in the moment, or what I'm trying to work through in the moment, or this weird idea I have today, but like I'm not expecting, oh, there's gonna be like 1,000 views tomorrow, you know? So it isn't like I put this one thing in there because I know that whoever's gonna watch this tomorrow is gonna love this one thing I did. It's more like, oh, I decided to use these exact words because these are the ones that I'm willing to put into it. There's the constant tug of war within me of like, can I please just, it's like eating cake when you, or like, you know, you just, it's like the cherry on top when you made it for somebody else's enjoyment, which is what I wish I could do more often, but I have so much that I feel like I have to like work on within myself, that I always see it as like, someday I'm gonna get to do it that way. But it's so much easier in the moment to work through everything so that I can just, I have this thing where I think that someday I'll work through everything that I have to work through, and then I'll just get to only do the fun part. So sometimes I put off the fun part, like someday I'll get to just do the fun part, but like the healing part I do more often which is not the fun part at all. Okay, next question. Oopsie. Can you stand up? Okay. What does success look like to you? What does success look like to you? What does it look like? Success. I think the more that I feel deprived of success, right? Which is a funny thing to say, it's very paradoxical, because it's like, well, you could just have success in the future, right? Once you do things that you hope lead to success, just for it to not, you feel deprived of success, which is, again, just paradoxical and ironic and whatever. The more of that you take in, the deprived of success now, I guess, your idea of success becomes still things that you don't have, but almost lower and lower and lower in like quantity of things, I guess. At least that's how I feel. So of course I think everybody wants like to someday have a record label, and to someday have streams on a song, and to someday have a music video that's like professionally done where you hired somebody to do it, and everybody wants to be the biggest artist in the world. And if there's somebody above you, you're in numbers or whatever, you're never gonna feel like, well, I did everything that was in some way possible, right? Maybe you don't feel like you did everything that was in some way possible because there's somebody else who beat you in a sense, which is cool because it's like a competitive world. But there's things that feel like success to me, which, you know, at some point moving out would feel like success because, okay, at some point in my life I had enough money to like move out. I think if I had any money to like advertise any songs that I have, or yeah, like there's things below just finding like a record label. Like right now, not having any money, success feels like ordering like Uber Eats or something, you know. It's like, this is a successful day because I had the finances for that to happen, you know. Or if I had an advertisement on my YouTube video at some point in time that does well someday, like I say someday as if it's hopefully not, like, you know, like hopefully it could just be in like a few months or something, but yeah. So that would feel incredibly successful. I think success begins to be more the part of myself that made that choice, not how rare it was for the choice to be made. It's more like what does it look like? I mean, it would be so cool to just go on a vacation someday that I like paid for myself, which like just, you know, just pick a place and go there. Like, I think that would feel like success. I think again, moving out, if I moved to like, I'm kind of tired of Florida, if I moved to a different state, that would feel like success. I think I've always had this mindset, like someday I want to move out and like not have roommates. Like I want to move out to a situation where I could like pay rent. I wanted to be in like a big city because I don't drive a car, so like, and I didn't really see that as like one of my goals. I wasn't like drawn to doing that like in any way, so it didn't feel like it would add to my life. It felt like it would take away from my life, so I wanted to sort of strategize, how can I not do that, but also I'm probably gonna be up in the middle of the night at like 3 in the morning writing songs. Do I really want like roommates who are gonna be like, you're being too loud? Or what if my roommates are like annoying? What if it's not compatible, right? That's possible. Or what if I don't feel like I have like a relationship? Like, what if we're not friends? Like, what if I have roommates and we're not friends? Or what if I have roommates and it's awkward? Or what if I can't tell if they really like me, but like, what if I wish they didn't hate me, but what if I can't tell? Like, I don't want to have to worry about that. Like, I want, and do you really want to feel like, I feel like sometimes around people who you're not close with, it always feels like this formal thing. Do I want roommates that I feel like I'm in this like formal energy with, in a way? Like, or do I feel like I would be like just chill? Like, how do I want that to feel? I just would enjoy not having roommates, because then I can feel like I'm choosing. I don't want to feel like it's like a social interaction with strangers if I go to get a glass of water from the kitchen. That's not how I picture success. But of course, I guess any version of moving out someday is moving out, but like, that's just not how I see it. I wanted to be able to do a version of being able to pay rent in a big city and not be in an area that feels ghetto, because I just don't want the logistics of like the negative emotions of that or whatever. Like, I feel like I would, it's not like, oh, I don't want to be judged by people because they're gonna see where I am. Like, I think sometimes if you're in an area you don't know about, you have this, what feels like a safety factor, even if you can just have like street smarts and stuff. Like, I feel like there's still what feels like the perceived, like the psychological safety factor of like, well, I would just love to not have to worry about it, you know? That's all. I know anywhere you are, there's like something on your mind where you're like, well, I would just love the psychological version of like not having to worry about it ever. So in like a nice area, I wouldn't want to be like, I'm not saying I'm gonna walk down the street at like 3 in the fucking morning, but like, I would love the psychological, like, I don't have to be like, oh no, it's dark out and I'm by myself and I haven't been down that street before, you know? I feel like if you feel like you're in a nice area, there's a reduced amount of like the psychological, like the mental, you know, like, so yeah, I would love to be in a nice area, pay rent, and I think there's different tax brackets that success can still bring that in different forms. I feel like I do. There were times when I think I dared to like dream and have goals, and I thought it would be so cool to be able to like, I think I had goals that were very imaginary, right? Like, I always thought it would be so cool to be able to like pay off a year of rent before I move out somewhere or something, just so I don't have to worry about it, or just so I don't have to work a normal job. I think things like that, where I'm not saying I want to live out of my means, I'm just saying that that if I could be like a full-time artist and not have to work a normal job, you know, like, I'm just saying, if I could do something like that, then that would be success to me. That doesn't mean $1 million, you know, in some places that means way less than that, like an insane amount less than that, like an insane amount less than that, you know, not even like, that doesn't mean $50,000, that means an insane amount less than that, you know. It might not mean 20,000, it might mean way less than that, like, it's like, depending on where, right? But like, you know what I'm saying. So, but right now I have 0, so like anything feels like, if I could ever have like a another DoorDash order, that feels like success, but like buying just like a new outfit feels like success, right? So if I got my hair done like professionally, that feels like success. Like those things do feel like success. There's different, like, I don't know. That took me 8 minutes to explain, but yeah. Okay, next question. Next question. Oh, spider monkey got in the way. Okay. Are we good? Okay. Do you think people misunderstand your work because of how much there is? Do I think people misunderstand my work because of how much there is? Well, I get like 3 views on a video. I think people misunderstand my work because A, they either personally know me, so then they're trying to carry the context of who they perceived me as into the work, which I don't know who you know me as, and I don't know who you're gonna perceive the work as, even though it came from me. So, you know, so there's that. I feel like, even though I don't even know a lot of people, to be honest, like, who have I met ever? Barely a lot, not a lot. So, I mean, I've, like, the average amount, I guess, but, like, you know, school, jobs, a friend of a friend or something, but, like, I haven't really met, like, a lot of people. That was stupid. Okay, I haven't met an insane amount of people, is what I mean. Do I think people misunderstand? I mean, I think people just think that I'm like a creepy old man, but I'm me. So that's more of like a personal misunderstanding. But there's also nobody who could possibly think that, because you can just see who I am in any context of knowing who I am. So there's that. Do I think people misunderstand the work? I guess there is work. I guess there is more than what you would have expected. I mean, I guess, like, my mom probably misunderstands it, but, like, who else misunderstands it? Who knows about it? I think it's more that nobody knows about it, and I think there's vulnerability in not knowing if people... There's vulnerability in not knowing how people will find out. There's not vulnerability in not knowing if people will, because then it's kind of the absence of vulnerability. It's kind of it. There's not some, like, I can't, like, Google how do people feel about my catalog. Oh, this is a misconception, that's a misconception, you know? Okay. Now, the next question, which I'm really not sure how I'm gonna answer it. Okay. Is your music more like documentation or storytelling? I almost feel like kind of swerving the question is the only way to go, because I don't really even know. Documentation, is that like a scrapbook, right? So it's sort of like I put this together over a long period of time, and I don't really know. Documentation, like documents, like pieces of paper. Like, I think of like a driver's license is probably like documentation, right? Or like, I don't know what that means. What is documentation? It's not like a Word document. I don't think it's so boring to go through that it would be impossible, like whatever documentation means. Storytelling, I think, forces it to be something the audience would identify as a cohesive story. But I think they were just created over a long period of time, and in a very abstract way, they continue to tell a story. A story. Okay, next question. Next question. What keeps you motivated to keep creating? What keeps you motivated to keep creating? Am I motivated to keep creating? Am I still creating? Well, the songs are still coming out. Does something keep me there? There's been a very large amount of whales who give me one raisin each to keep going, and I just do it. Not for the raisins, I don't really like raisins, but I just do it. I think when the sprint becomes a marathon, you know that if you stop, it looks like everything you created has no value, but if you keep going, it had so much infinite value that simply creating was the thing that made you keep going. Okay, so next question. What kind of listener do you think connects most? What kind of listener do you think connects most with your music? With my music? What kind of listener? Kind? What type? I don't know what type. Age group, I think, is what I was thinking of with that question. So I feel like anybody's welcome to, of course. I think what I picture is like my age or a few years older and younger. Does that make sense? So like I would say like my age and younger, but if you're like a few years older than me, then that age and younger. And the reason for that is because as far as my music, I feel like any like references that I think or things that I feel drawn to that I think are really cool, like I feel like it would, if people did know about me and it had to make waves with any specific audience, that's the group that I would almost like just feel like there's probably more of a reason that you would like this, because if there's people that are older, it's not that they can't, I just don't know why they would, because I don't know the specific reason that they would, but they could. There's just 0 views right now, so who knows? But I think having a young audience that's your age or younger is really cool, because it means that you kind of set out to do what you wanted to do. I would want it to be something that would make older people feel younger and younger people feel older, not something that would make people feel infinitely more dead, I guess, than they are. So if you're like 90, I wasn't hoping to make you feel so old that you died, like I guess, like I don't know. I was hoping to be cool, and I was hoping to be seen that way, even if it's in an abstract, weird way. I was hoping to be cool, not so awful that the only people who could ever care are a million years older than me. All right, next question. A little bit of a biter, this next question, okay? Do you expect people to listen to full albums or just random songs? So here's the deal. Do me expect? Well, expect means I'm gonna be disappointed if it doesn't happen, okay? Okay. People. Well, here's the thing. Strangers are people I know. Numbers of people or individual specific ones? Listen. Well, if the volume's down and I still get views, I'm not gonna know. Full albums, those might be too long to have a solid expectation that everybody makes it through the whole entire thing. Random songs sound so miscellaneous and sad that it's like nobody paid attention ever, right? I think I can't really expect a number of views. I hope someday I could move out and have rent that I could pay and food and stuff. And I hope that it could be from the music I create or the videos I create in a combination, that I could afford that. Again, expectations kind of get lower the longer you don't have something. You start to just be willing to settle for, you know, whatever possible version. This could still be fruitful. I think I think the version of me that started making songs would be very sad if nobody ever listened to a full album in like the entire context of like me existing forever, right? If not a single person can like make it through every song I've made, I think that version of me would be sad. But like I've grown and evolved to be like, well, if people do even try to listen, then like I'm grateful that they tried. I think somewhere in the past there's a version of me that would have been like, well, why does somebody want my attention if they haven't already listened to, I would have thought, every song that I created, but that's not realistic anymore, because maybe back then it would have been 50, or like I'm thinking of not like recently, but like years ago, right? When I was probably like 14, if you told that version of me like, oh, you're gonna like date somebody someday who has never listened to like your songs, I would just be like, well, then that's obviously the wrong person. Because if somebody cared about me the way that I think I care about people, then first of all, that's not realistic for somebody to care about me the way that I've cared about people. But if something that were like 1% of that happened, then every song I ever listened or created would have been listened to already. So like there's no way. But like you kind of, I think, well, I feel like I have lived up to that. I don't really go on dates with people, but like, because I kind of believe in the magic of it being the right person, which is this whole entire thing that nobody in this current world really believes in or cares about. So it's sort of ironic to still carry that around, right? To want it to be like, why would it be special if it's the right person or something, right? Like, I feel like that's just been strange, I guess, to people, right? But like, I think I wanted to romanticize that, the concept of like, why can't it just be like, not a fairy tale, like there's things you have to accept about people and that people accept about you, whatever, but like the concept of wanting to grow with somebody, well, if somebody doesn't start in a space where they care about you, then you don't have a whole lot. So yeah, I think there was a version of me that wanted to just believe that was a real thing. So I think like when I was like a teenager and stuff, so like as an adult now, like I think I still have like the fragmented, like broken version of like still wanting to believe in that. So I think that on a journey of like healing yourself in a way, you become the more alive version of that, but you don't really lose like your values of like your capacity to understand whether or not you truly feel valued by somebody, even if you kind of, maybe you're willing to settle for something in the moment, but like you never really lose your capacity to identify whether you feel valued by somebody to the highest degree that you feel necessary in order to have something that you feel like goes both ways equally. So I think part of why I avoid dating people a lot is not just because I'm not going to sit down and watch and listen to every song, because that's not really realistic anymore. I think the produced versions, that would be cool if there were songs that they liked. But I think I'm in like the weird in-between state where I would just be like excited that there's a song that they know, they don't have to know the words to it. Like, that I would never expect, because I think nobody's memory is like perfect. But like, I don't know. It's weird, right? It's like, I think people can walk around in the world settling because they're not going to find something better than that, and that's just not what I want, because I don't want to ever have an attachment to needing to be in a relationship with somebody or needing somebody's attention. I don't want somebody's attention if they don't actually care and they're pretending to like get something from me. Like, that's weird, you know? Like, I would not do that. Yeah. But if they had some songs that I had created that they discovered that they liked, right now they're not produced, so I don't even know if I could sit through them as much as like if they were studio produced, right? So I'm not expecting somebody to be able to like love something that I feel like I could barely love, but I can just continue what I'm doing. That would be weird. That would be like, it's not about realistic. It's about like, would I be excited that somebody listened to every song I ever created in the not studio produced form? I think I would be horrified and really worried for like their mental health. I think that's part of the problem. I think I would be worried about the mental health of anybody who cared about me to the degree that I would actually want them to before I would even go on a date with them. I feel like I don't know how you made it this far in life if I'm who your attention is going to, which, reversing some of the mental structures and being like, this one's almost perfect, it just has to be the complete opposite of that. So I don't know yet. Okay, the funny thing about the next question, again, these are from ChatGPT. This next question is very much, if a real interviewer asked this, it would just be one of those like weird insulting questions that like, I guess like how could they not ask, but it's like giving like, it's giving like it would get clipped for if I were famous and there were a real interviewer, for them being like insulting and weird, I guess, or like trying to make me uncomfortable or something. But again, just ChatGPT is like, here's the questions. So how should someone approach your catalog without getting overwhelmed? Right? It's almost kind of like a backhanded like, well, they definitely will get overwhelmed, you know? So but like, also the devilly questions you can still answer. And it just is what it is. Like, I guess, could it be a common question? I think it could be a common question who's like in a closeted, trying to insult you weird way. But if I wanted to answer that, how should somebody approach my catalog without getting overwhelmed? I think if they're an easily overwhelmed person for no reason, then maybe they should just not approach it. If they can't approach it in a way that's going to like maintain their mental health still, like, it's kind of not my business. If they do or not, because if I don't know you, like, maybe you should just not, like, if you're, I mean, not that you can't listen to it, but like, that's not what I mean. If you're gonna make it my problem if you feel overwhelmed, then like maybe don't listen to it, because it's not so hard for you to avoid what you were already avoiding so far in your life. You know, you can kind of just, I think if you got overwhelmed super easily from it, you might have been making it personally about you in some context, or whether or not these songs exist, you might have been making about you personally. They're barely about me. I mean, the fact that it exists is barely about me. I'm so in the present moment. So, I don't know. I think it's amazing if you do, and if you have the capacity for it. But just like if somebody's watching a TV show, if you feel like this one's too long for you, there's long TV shows out there because somebody wants them and somebody watches them. But if that one's too long for you and you watched the other ones and you just ignored me or whatever, that's fine. Nobody died just because you ignored me. It's okay. It's so okay. It's so okay. It's okay. it's fine. Okay. Next question. Another almost ironic must be one, right? For like the phase I'm at in my journey, okay? Okay. Have fans ever interpreted your songs in surprising ways? Well, guess what? Having 0 views on the majority of my videos and not a lot of comments on them, and not a lot of people I've ever met listen to them or know about them. So, and I haven't met like an infinite number of people, but like, you know, I have 0 fans who are definitely fans and not just trying to be the loudest comment in the comment section or whatever. There's definitely a little of that, a little of the backhanded comments like, I will never listen to this video, but here's what you're doing wrong from my perspective that you don't even know me from. I get the occasional that one, but nothing else. Yeah, so 0 people have ever interpreted my songs in surprising or unsurprising ways, in positive or negative ways. Just a loud number 0. Okay, next song. Again, I don't really know how I'm gonna answer this one. Why was I surprised? Okay, I'm surprised about everything that ever happens. Okay. What's the weirdest song you've ever made? Honestly, what's a weird song I've made? Oh, any songs with like a dark topic, any songs. I have a few songs where like somebody died in the song or something, like not real people but like characters. It's not like I just have actual people like dropping dead, but like obviously, but like I'm not unnormal. But yeah, there's characters in my songs that die sometimes, and I think the only weird part about that is like I now try to make sure I'm not going too far, but I think there were some moments where I maybe allowed it to go too far. There were maybe moments where I allowed it to go a little too far, which I try to like pull back on that and think of other ways to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish without it being violent in any way. Because that's not what I mean, it's just that like the song, I was so inspired to create it in this exact way. And then in hindsight, you're like, okay, I could have like pulled back on that a little bit. And like sometimes you're so like, but what if self-expression has to be as crazy as possible and like as like raw as possible? And then you're in hindsight, you're like, okay, I could have like scaled that back a little bit. But in the future, maybe I'll do something a little different that contains a little bit less of an edgy, dark side. I still like the vampire-y side, but like scale back the too much of it all. Okay. Next question. Which song means the most to you personally? Okay, so I don't want too much evil eye on like a specific song because I don't know, you know, YouTube's never had like a harsh side to me, but just in case, I'll just tell you I have songs on Lab Grown Diamonds that mean a lot to me personally. I have songs on Scarlet Etiquette that mean a lot to me personally. A lot of them do. Oh, I have an album called Ethan and Da Vinci. There's songs on there that mean a crazy amount to me personally. I have an album called Domino and Chase, and I have an insane amount on there that means a lot to me personally, even though that one I'm still starting up. There's this one, I forgot what it's called, but I think it might be called The Cat of Saint Germain. I think that album has a lot of songs that mean a lot to me personally. Okay. What else? I have songs everywhere that mean a lot to me personally. Some I just make for the sake of creating something, and then maybe the studio produced version someday will have a stronger connection to me. Some of the firsts, if you will, I have a couple of songs at the start of my catalog that didn't end up on an album because I didn't know I was making albums yet until it just happened. So the flow of everything, I think the first song of a lot of albums draws a lot of like connection to me, if you will, because this was such a fresh start to the project that I like started it in this exact way, I guess, if you will. Okay. Next question. Now this is kind of like a darker side to it with my answer, because I know what my answer is gonna be, okay? Do you have a hidden gem no one talks about? Well, nobody really talks. I have a surprising amount of possibly just spirits if anybody's there listening. Perhaps I'm lucky enough to have 100,000 ghosts or a djinn or something in the room or listening in an imaginary way, right? Hopefully. Do I seem like it? Probably not, because they're probably not there, but hopefully. Maybe I'm just so humble. Maybe it's in an imaginary way for now, but a lot someday, right? Maybe I'm putting on concerts that I don't know about because the people are invisible, but physical, real people? No, I don't have those. So, there weren't going to be people who would talk about any hidden gems about me. I would love to know, I guess, but I think I have a good imagination to know, but, well, I think anything that probably went too far is probably a hidden gem that nobody talks about. I think I went too far talking about, human heads and stuff. Like, I think I went really, I didn't want a lot of evil eye because, gotta puncture that bubble, burst that bubble. I didn't actually do anything wrong, so I just didn't want a surprising amount of evil eye. But I think a hidden gem about me is also just anything about like the concept of characters dying in songs, and that is an example of characters dying in songs in ways that were maybe I could scale that back a little bit and talk about it in a way that doesn't sound so physical, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe there's ways that I can suggest that this is a concept and not in a way that sounds so like, oh my god, imagine this happening, right? But I think it's a hidden gem because I find a lot of like things about that exciting, and a hidden gem would kind of be like the fact that sort of popped up in my ideas for my music catalog, but it was also related to some dreams that I had after I put out the first album that I made, or the start of the first album, you know what I mean? I started talking about dreams immediately after, feeling that I had finished it, but then I ended up adding to the album later on. But yeah, that's actually like a direct connection, is those with the dreams that I had that I talked about. Those were sort of like a soul-tied Easter egg, I guess, in a way. So okay. What's a song you almost didn't release? Before I started putting songs on albums at the very start, I would say I had some songs that almost ended up not existing at all because I didn't know what I was going to call it, but I had the momentum of putting out the first one that I wanted to keep going. But I will say, when I put out, I don't know if it's called We're Going to Mars or Going to Mars, I forgot. So I had this song about Mars that was song numero uno, and so when that happened, I decided I decided to put it out after a year of not putting anything out because I hadn't started yet, but I had it in my camera roll, so I know I keep talking about it. Like, how uninteresting am I if I have the same story more than once, right? Like, so dead to you if I have the same story more than once in my life. Okay, because why could I not be so interesting that I'm so new and inventive that I have a new one? Yeah, I should be having more life experiences or something, I don't know. I hate myself. Okay. So that one, because it took me so long, I almost never put it out, and then I wouldn't have anything out. The next question is one of those like weird things. I don't even know. Oh my god. Okay. A worst case scenario survival zombie apocalypse. Like, what? If your entire discography disappeared except 5 songs, which would you save? Okay, so because I put out 1,000 songs, over 1,300 songs in the past year, and worked on it like every day, multiple times a day, clearly. So if every song I put out, that's like, I mean, it's almost like a violating question, because it's like, okay, that would be on the level of like experiencing like sexual trauma at that point in time, like, to be honest with you, because it's like, that's like a giant amount of yourself to have disappear out of nowhere. Or it would be like, congratulations, you got bombed, you lost both your legs, but at least you're alive. You're like, okay, 90% of me is pretty sure the rest of me should have died too. I'm not sure I understand the question. I think I would, if I, instead of keeping 5 songs, I would hopefully be able to keep just the will to continue creating, because that would be so dead if I felt so at risk of losing or if I actually lost the rest of it. Like, I feel like it would be like, just like, oh, well, the thing that mattered to you so much is just gone. But like, okay, then what else do I still have? Because you're only drawing attention to what I lost. Oh, I get to choose 5 songs. Okay, but what about the 1,300 songs? Like, those are just gone. So what's the point of keeping anything? I think I almost have the throw the baby out with the bathwater mindset, where like, well, if I'm gonna lose that much already, I might as well lose everything, you know? It's like, congratulations, you have cancer, but you get to keep your hair. You're like, not sure I wanted it anyway at that point. Like, oh, somebody is sawing your feet off, but you get to keep your shoes. Okay, great. I think I would just randomly select like 5 from a lab-grown diamonds, because I would be like, oh, at least I get to remember the first album I put out, because that was kind of a difficult thing to do. But like, again, like, the question is like, I really try to not think of that kind of scenario that much. Like, I hope that if that ever happened at any point in time, I would just have a lot of money by then to like make up for it, because I think some levels of trauma, you kind of almost lean on something to be able to go through. So hopefully the universe gives you enough to make up for it before you have the bad experience, so that you still have like an outlet to like care in any capacity. I think I would find that so survivable and so fun if I had enough like money to not have to work a normal job for like the rest of my life, and I can just like have like the most amazing life, because I just already have a lot of money and stuff. Like, I think that then I would be able to repair the amount of life purpose that was lost. But in another scenario, I would find that so hard to go through. So hopefully it's not, you know, this version of me that'll be going through that, because I would rather just like have a lot of money before I would have to go through trauma of that degree. at this phase in my life. You have to have something that brings the life back in if something really terrible happens, but sometimes the universe does not give you the good thing and the bad thing at the same time, and you have to just like suffer through it. But I don't think there's a, I try to work on, I don't think there would really be like a purpose. Like I don't think it would do something to my chakras that I would find useful, I guess. Like I wouldn't have like a higher level of like trauma that I would like go to. I would just be there like, okay, like the most pointless thing in the world just happened. There's not a whole lot I would really do other than just start to create more songs because it's what I'm already doing. I try to mentally say the only part of this that I own was the moment in my, I guess, timeline where it was created, and all the energy that I created still exists in a non-physical form. Even if these got deleted, I really try to like therapize myself in that way so that it doesn't feel, you know, so that it doesn't feel like anything could happen. If you build a house and it catches on fire and the house burned down immediately after you spent a whole year building it, right? You sort of, there's different ways you can really cope with that, but to me, being like, okay, then the energy represented in the house in a spiritual context still exists to the same degree, if not a greater degree. I just don't get to experience that right now. But okay, like maybe after this life I can still experience the house because the concept of the house still exists somewhere. So if I wanted to go back and visit it, there's a version of it that still exists, is what I try to do. Okay, next question. Do you see yourself ever slowing down? Well, the bad news if you want me to slow down is no right now. The good news if you don't want me to slow down is I sort of wanted to be able to use my magic in my creation of songs to turn it into the way that I recharge and improve things like my mental health. So yeah, I wanted to be able to use the songs to do that so much that like that's just what I'm currently using for it. Next. Would you ever stop posting everything? As far as songs, like as far as amount of songs, I think if I had a record label that's like, hey, you can only post this many albums in a year or create this many albums in a year, I would just find another way of like processing emotions, and I would still put out work, but it would just be in the quantity that I'm allowed to do for whatever amount of money. You do what you gotta do. Yeah. You do what you gotta do. That might just be how it is. Like, I don't see it as it would have to be a bad thing. Stop posting entirely is something I don't see myself wanting to do though. But yeah, if there had to be changes to the way that that works just so that I could like have a positive, like happy life, then said and done, I guess. Next question. Next question. Next question. Are you building toward something, or is the act of creating the goal? The goal? The goal? The goal? The goal? Are you building towards something, or is the act of creating the goal? Well, having realistic goals keeps people's mental health in a way better place. And if I don't have like an insane amount of money to put towards advertising, then I can't be like, my goal is that this many people find out about me. So, but those would be such high self-esteem, amazing goals. And then if they came true, that would just infinitely like quadruple that self-esteem, right? But a lot of it would just be coming from money and like financial success that comes from already having financial success. But if that's not what I'm starting with, then yeah, you'd have to understand that like little whiteboard with some words that I wrote on it, you would have to be able to understand that my goals cannot be any more complex than the resources I have to support that, so that I'm not dragging myself down for no reason with some weirdly unrealistic expectations. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's always hopefully building towards something, so that part's kind of backhanded, right? Or are you building towards something as they kick you in the face while you're laying on the ground already? Or is the act of creating the goal? Well, I think that continuing the act of creating is a pretty good goal for where I'm at. I'm okay with that. Next question. What do you want your legacy as an artist to be? What do I want my legacy as an artist to be? I'm still figuring out what that even means, dude. Little whiteboard with words that I wrote on it. I'm still figuring out what that means. What do I want my legacy as an artist to be? I would love to be able to make $20 million someday. Well, actually, that was my goal for a long time, but it never happened, so now I want billions. Like, actually, but yeah, I would donate money and stuff to, like, good causes. I'm not, like, only gonna keep it for myself. Like, that would be weird. I wouldn't actually do that. But I think everybody has, like, fantasies about, like, some crazy, like, success, right? Well, I feel like I put a lot of work towards that and actually been very mindful about how I could start from nothing and end up there. But I'm not doing the pretend version where I just have $1 million to put into ads or $1 billion to put into ads like a lot of these people. So, you know, what do I want my legacy to be? See, legacy implies that there's no end of the world and stuff, right? So, which, great. I'm not saying there is, but all I'm saying is legacy implies everybody except for me infinitely lives forever. Is kind of what legacy implies, right? Like, but also nobody has a legacy. People have a legacy after they die, but nobody has like a legacy. And I don't mean, okay, say, oh, world never ends, we never die, we live so long. Everybody gets forgotten about either way. I mean, except like the Stonehenge or whatever it's called. Stonehenge. Isn't Hinge like some weird dating app or something? I don't know. I wouldn't know, but I think it is. I think I've heard it. I think, what do I want my legacy? I want like a chicken sandwich, dude. What do I want my legacy to be? I want a chicken sandwich more than I want a legacy. What do I want my legacy to be? I have this little whiteboard with some markers. I would love to have like another one of these. What do I want my legacy, like after I'm not alive? Well, when I had this one dog that died, they buried it with flowers all over the dog. Like, it's giving like flower crown of flowers and flowers like in your fur, you know? I wouldn't mind that, but that's not what a legacy is. A legacy isn't how they decorate you after you die. Are you mummified? Like, mummification is not the legacy. The legacy is like how much money do you have, right? Wait, no. How much advertising they do after you already died. Or do you end up in museums? I think if I could be cool enough to have a museum either related, like oh, did I have some like iconic looking outfits? I wouldn't mind having a legacy of like I had some iconic outfits. What is a legacy? The way that I made people feel about themselves. Like, I hope that I made them feel like anything was possible or something weird and corny. There's not a lot that I feel like, I'm not a legacy focused person. I understand if people have money that gets passed down or there's a museum about them afterwards, but eventually even museums close their doors because thousands of years later something happened to society. Like, even in that context, okay, when there's dinosaurs again, it's not going to matter who had a legacy for however many thousands of years, hundreds of years, 10 years. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't matter. Okay. Third. Next question that the imaginary whiteboard is giving us is this. It says, what's next? Album 41? Question marks everywhere. I think how I know that it's not album 41 is that I think I've already surpassed starting album 41, but I think I don't know if I'm on like 50 or something. I haven't really counted in a while, but I think that what's next is still working on finishing the albums I'm currently doing, and I keep, instead of going back to finishing some of them, I keep doing this thing where I start to just my mental image of myself is not real, okay? But I end up like announcing an album and starting it and then finishing that album or getting close to finishing that album or working, like putting out like 30 songs in like just a few days for that album immediately after starting it. I start to do that so much. Okay, I think what's next? I turn to songwriting as, I'll explain. Even though it's not going to be a long explanation, it's actually going to be an interesting one. Lately, I just have this mental image of myself getting bitten to death by ants, by like fire ants. I just like fall into an anthill and I'm like bitten to a pulp, and that's how I die. So because I keep having that mental image of myself, I think that there are probably songs that I'll create in the near future that get me to the other side of that, work through whatever that is. Because yeah, for example, what's next is why do I always have, it's like I'm watching horror films in my predictions of reality that never happens, but I'll picture something of myself or somebody else, and it's always like, again, like getting like bitten to death by ants or something is something I picture. Obviously unprompted, I'm not sitting here like trying to picture that, but like, yeah, I over explain a lot, but I'm just working on being the world's most annoying person so I can have some weird narcissistic reputation and be hated by everyone who I've ever met or who will ever meet me and infinite strangers, so that I can just order like Uber Eats for the rest of my life and stuff, and like move out, and I don't know. I'm hoping that I can just make a bunch of like sacrifices that are going to affect me forever so that I can have a more fun life. That's what's next, is hopefully finding some way to do that. Just make all of the sacrifices early in life so you can look back on it and wonder why you did that. But you were young enough that it didn't matter why you decided to do it. That's all for the video. I love you guys. Bye. Mwah.
They can't tell me what to do. There's caffeine on the house, it's active, radioactive. Loving you felt like dying on the operating table. like climbing a ladder till I give up and fall. Like the anesthesia didn't work, and I feel the creation of every scar. Like a movie I'm chained to.
Wait, really quick, guys, I have to tell you about my GoFundMe for my music career. I have a GoFundMe for my music career starting from $0, raising money for ads to grow my audience and to reach record labels. If things grow, then I will eventually be using that money to turn my YouTube demos into full professional real recordings. And help me to go as far as possible. I bet if you guys will do your best to help me and to invest, you guys could probably turn me into the biggest pop star in the world. It's just going to really depend on how much you guys are willing and able to help me. So please do what you can to help, and I love you. Mwah. Bye.
I have 1 penny to buy this iced coffee, but this is everything you gave me. How did you know the gum on the ground was yours if you've never seen it before? There are no refunds for this part of me. Don't forget where you were when we met. I wanted to be liquidated, but they haven't found me yet. I'll spell it out for you when I'm free. There's disrespect in the water and the liquor can.